Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS College Football Week 1. Another video, TCU Stanford. I like this game. Got a bet on this game. Think about placing a second bet. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the SWAS. The SWAS. SWAS. Hey, get the SWAS.
All right, like I said, we got TCU Stanford. TCU's on the road here. Looks like Stanford's catching 9. There are some 9.5s out there. This line recently moved because a friend of mine grabbed Stanford at plus 8.5 just yesterday. So looks like it jumped up 9.5 or 9 depending on your sports book. Total's also a little bit on the move. Total was sitting at 60.5. Looks like there's none of those left. It's either 60 or 59.5. So it looks like it shifted down in the last day or so as well. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got heavy lean on TCU, 44.3, 13.3. But again, as I keep saying, my model, I don't update it with new rosters. So this is based on last year's data. And as we know, Stanford was historically bad and TCU was pretty damn good. So according to this model from last year, heavy lean on TCU. So let's get into this one. And we'll start with TCU, sitting at 39th in returning production, 16 returning starters, 9 on the defensive side of the ball. And I think if you're a TCU fan, you got to be pretty pumped about the defense this year. But we'll start with the offense. As we know, TCU has a specific style under Sonny Dice. They like to throw the ball. 4th in pace. They move quickly. They throw a lot. 13th in passing frequency. And they got their quarterback. Entering last season was supposed to be Chandler Morris. Chandler Morris got hurt. Freshman Josh Hoover takes over, and Chandler Morris never even got his job back. So they're comfortable going into the season with Josh Hoover as quarterback. Definitely some times last season he looked really good. Sometimes he looked a little shaky. He looked a little bit like a freshman, but as a whole, there's hype surrounding this kid. They're happy to have him, and I personally think he looked pretty solid as a freshman. So we'll see how his sophomore season goes. Here are his numbers: 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. TCU's offensive numbers looking great. As we know, this is a pass-first team. Just 61st in yards per attempt. It's because this team likes to get the ball out quick. They're 10th in effective pass. So this is a very good passing attack. Also, pretty solid rushing numbers as well. 31st in yards per carry, 28th in success rate, just 70th in effective rush, though. Like we mentioned, TCU likes to throw the ball, and they're going to have to because they lost their star running back from last year, Imani Bailey, over 1,200 yards rushing, 5.4 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. He is gone. Also, and this is probably the most concerning part of the TCU offense, all 5 starters on the offensive line are gone. All 5 on the current TCU starting offensive line. I believe all 5 pieces come through the transfer portal. Now, it's TCU. They're a great program. I'm sure the pieces they brought in are going to hit, or at least a majority of them will. Problem is, it's week 1. And as we just saw overseas with Florida State's offensive line was much better than Georgia Tech's defensive front. But Georgia Tech was winning those battles because it was week 0, and this is week 1. This unit has never played together before, so it's definitely a concern of mine regarding TCU's offense. And by the way, TCU's offensive line was pretty solid last year. I mean, here are the metrics: solid in run blocking, solid in pass protection. So having a brand new unit, definitely not something you like to see here. Now, you might be thinking, Kyle, who cares? They're playing Stanford, and Stanford's defense was terrible last year. And you're not wrong by saying that. Here are Stanford's defensive metrics. They're almost laugh out loud bad. I mean, 107th in effective rush, 100th in effective pass. Here are their defensive line metrics: 128th in run defense rank, 128th in pass rush grade. Yeah, Stanford definitely had a rough defensive year. I will give you that. But here's the thing: when it comes to Stanford, everyone's back. They are 2nd in the country in returning production, 18 returning starters on both sides of the ball, too. They're getting everyone back. As far as the Stanford defensive front 7, 5 of the 7 starters are back. In the secondary, 6 defensive backs returned that started the game last year. So tons of experience returning on this Stanford defense. And another thing about Stanford, last year, it was just really unfortunate. They had trouble finding a head coach. Troy Taylor took the job late, so they didn't even know who their head coach was going to be until deep into the offseason. Lost a couple months of preparation there. Not to mention they lost a ton of production from the year before. So as a whole, last year for Stanford, I'm not saying disregard it. I'm just saying the odds were definitely stacked against them. So here we are. Troy Taylor comes back for his 2nd year as head coach, brings back a ton of starters on the defense. I think no question this unit's going to be much, much better. Also, something I like for Stanford's defense here, we just got done talking about how TCU likes to throw the ball, right? 13th in passing frequency or whatever it was. That's not out of the ordinary for Stanford's defense. They played in the Pac-12 last year. There was like 5 NFL quarterbacks: Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. I mean, Stanford is they're not strangers to playing against pass-happy offenses with talented quarterbacks. So TCU's offense, although they pass a lot, it's definitely dynamic, tough to stop. Stanford's no stranger to playing teams like that. Now, on the other side, we got Stanford's offense, and just like TCU, they like to throw the ball a lot, and they run a really fast pace, 29th in pace, 28th in pass frequency. Now, a lot of their pass frequency might be as a result of being down on the scoreboard, but no question, they want to throw the ball here at Stanford. They want to move quick. That's why the total in this game is so high. It was up at 60.5, 61. They're bringing their quarterback, Ashton Daniels, back this year, 2,250 yards, 6.9 yards per attempt, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not the best looking numbers. If you watched Stanford football last year, you know that there were times where Ashton Daniels looked really good. I mean, go check out the Colorado game, or I think it was the Washington game maybe. There were a couple games where he looked really good against good opponents. There are also some games where he looked really bad. So really inconsistent, tough to rely on week in and week out. But after starting for a year, coming back with a year of experience under his belt, you'd think that he improves this year. They also bring back a ton of production at wide receiver. Their star wide receivers back, that dude that mossed Travis Hunter to win to beat Colorado. He's back. Like I said, their top 3 receivers are back. So when we pull up the Stanford offensive numbers, yeah, they look pretty terrible. 96th in yards per pass attempt, 118th in passing success rate. But look at the effective pass, 67th. Now that takes into account strength of schedule. That's showing us that Stanford's passing attack wasn't nearly as bad as their numbers indicate, and you bring back the quarterback and all the 3 top receivers, it's only bound to get better. Now, I do want to point out that Daniels had some nice passing numbers against man coverage last year. Actually, 37th Stanford passing was in passer rating against man coverage. And the reason I'm bringing that up, TCU ran the 3rd most man coverage in college football last year. 3rd in man coverage frequency. But the thing is, this is probably irrelevant because TCU fired their DC. Gillespie's gone. So I don't think this really means anything. I just thought it was interesting. Now, another thing we need to mention about Stanford's offense here, their offensive line. All 5 starters are back. And now you might be thinking, well, Kyle, Stanford's offensive line was pretty terrible last year. True, but this is Stanford. They're known for developing NFL offensive linemen. So to bring all 5 starters back, this offensive line goes from one of the worst in the country. I think it takes a huge step forward. I actually think Stanford's offensive line could be pretty good this year. So the offensive line all back, quarterback's back, top 3 wide receivers are back. What's missing? The weakness of the Stanford offense. Running back. Didn't have much of a running game at all last year. In fact, the 2 leading rushers on the team were the 2 quarterbacks. And as far as this year, I mean, I read they have a couple freshmen they really like, but I don't know how much production they're going to get out of the running back position. I'm hoping that that offensive line takes such a dramatic step forward that the running backs are able to make some plays and flourish a bit. But as a whole, really confident with Stanford's passing attack to take a step forward. As far as the rushing attack, I don't know. And I especially don't know in this matchup because I expect TCU's defensive front to be very good. TCU not really branded as a defensive program, and their defense was by no means good last year, but they actually did a solid job against the run. 51st in yards per carry allowed, 77th in run defense success rate, 53rd in effective rush. Not great, but pretty solid by TCU standards. They're known as more of an offensive program. They bring a ton of production back in the defensive front. They lost their best defensive lineman who transferred to Oklahoma, but other than that, they bring 2 starters back at linebacker, and they bring the rest of their starting defensive line is back. So they really only lost, I think, 2 starters out of that defensive front. And like I said, this run defense wasn't bad last year. So I expect TCU to do a really good job defensively against the run. And I actually think TCU's secondary could take a step forward this year as well. The problem is it's new faces. It's mostly built through the portal. And we're talking about week 1. I don't have to keep reiterating the same point. Week 1 with a new secondary against a Stanford passing attack that I actually think is going to be pretty dangerous. Don't really like them in week 1, but as a whole, I do think TCU secondary will be better than it was last year. Just maybe not in week 1, which is why I am taking the points with Stanford. I already bet this one. Took Stanford plus 9.5. Also considering an under. I almost bet the under yesterday at 60.5. Looks like you can't even get a 60.5 now. It's 60 or 59.5. The reason I might stay off the under, the reason I'm still contemplating it, is like I said earlier, a lot of passing and a fast pace. And what we've learned from Texas Tech over the years, teams like that, doesn't matter if the defense is actually playing well. If each team's going to run 90 possessions apiece, going to score a lot of points. So even though I think this stays under the total, and I think both defenses will play well here, I don't know if I could actually put any money on it, but I am on Stanford plus 9.5, and I also lean towards the under at 60. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open for week 1, or see all the bets that anyone on the staff here has open for week 1, head over to KyleKirms.com and check out the open bets. There's tabs, and you click on who you want to see, and it shows all the open bets that person has. Also, when you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord. You can also participate in the weekly betting league. $150 and a trophy goes to the winner every single week. So head over to the website and sign up if you're interested. Let's have our live shows, 4 p.m. Eastern time weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern time on weekends. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a nice week 1. Made a few dollars in week 0. I'll take it. Week 1, a lot of action on the board. Remember to bet responsibly. They'll talk to you in the Discord.